What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new. I hope you all are having a wonderful day, and I hope you had a great time exploring the brand new expansion pack Enchanted by Nature. Today we are building a family home which is located in Innisgreen, which is the new neighborhood that came with Enchanted by Nature, and we are actually building in the Spruce Dairy Grove part of Innisgreen. I am not gonna lie, at first I thought it was Spruce Berry Grove, and I feel like Spruce Berry Grove sounds better, but for some reason it threw me off when I realized it's actually Spruce Dairy and not Berry. So I don't know if I am the only one that got thrown off about that or not, but it definitely did throw me off. So if I accidentally say Spruce Berry Grove instead of Spruce Dairy Grove, you guys know why. But before we get into today's build, I would like to take a second to invite you guys to leave a like on this video if you do find it enjoyable, and also subscribe if you have not already, and also comment down below what your favorite part of the brand new expansion pack is. I really would love to hear y'all's thoughts on the brand new pack. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into today's build. At first, when I started building this, I thought I wanted to do a white trim. I am always just drawn to a white trim on a house. But once I added all of the windows and the columns on the trim of the house and all of that stuff, I realized that white just was not working in this neighborhood whatsoever. And I changed it from the white over to like this medium brown, kind of reddish wood trim plus roof. And I think it looks a lot better, and it makes more sense with the aesthetic that we're actually going for. Now, I do still want to try and make the white trim work. It just really depends on what house I'm building and for what sim. I feel like for a fairy house, the white trim might make a lot more sense if you pair it with like a super pastel, maybe pink. I don't think I've seen a purple wallpaper. Which leads me to my next thing. I'm not super happy with the different wallpapers that we received in this pack. I don't know, at first glance I really liked the items, but once I got in and tried building with all of them, I don't know if I really like the new items, guys. I'm not gonna lie, it's not my thing. I'm not a fairy tale builder. Some people, they can knock out a fairy tale build and it looks great, you know what I mean? I'm not that person. I have come to realize that this is a very hard theme for me to do. I thought modern was the hardest thing for me to do. No, I think it's fairy tale theme and like any sort of like super fairy tale vibe like fairies. And this whole pack in general does give like a fairy tale or a fable vibe, you know, like this exterior house right here. It looks like something you would see in like Hansel and Gretel or something like that, you know what I mean? Or maybe even Shrek. I don't know. It's been so long since I've seen a fairy tale, but that's the vibe this whole pack is giving me, which is cute if you know how to build with these items. But honestly guys, I had like the hardest time building with this pack this weekend. I would start a build and sit back and look at it and absolutely hate it and bulldoze the whole thing and start over again. That happened several times for me this weekend. This weekend was just not a good building weekend for me whatsoever. I didn't think I was gonna have to practice with the new items and stuff. I thought it was gonna be relatively easy, but honestly it's really not. I am just not a fairy tale builder. But I do think this house turned out pretty good. I think it's super cute and it does give the fairy tale aesthetic. So I guess that is a win at the end of the day. It's not the best build I've seen someone do with this new pack whatsoever, but hey, it's not the absolute worst I've seen either, so I guess that really is a win. But now that I have given you guys the rundown of how much I suck at fairy tale builds, let's go ahead and get into details about the family that actually lives here. So the mom was born and raised here in Innisgreen. She is actually from the Everdew part of Innisgreen, which yes, that means that she is a fairy. and she was raised by both of her parents, which were both fairies as well, and they lived in this sort of like fairy commune sort of thing, like a whole neighborhood of fairies, and all the fairies just raised their families together. And she absolutely loves living here in Innisgreen. She actually has never even been in a different portion of the world. Like, she's never been to Willow Creek or anything like that. She has no interest in going anywhere else. She is totally content and happy here in Innisgreen, and she hears way too much bad stuff about the outside world anyways, and so she is very content and happy with her little family of fairies here in Innisgreen. Now, her husband and the father that lives in this house, he is actually a human sim, and he was born and raised in Willow Creek. He has always loved the outdoors. He loves nature. He's always had an interest in the apothecary skill. He actually was attending university, and that is kind of how they met. So she was not attending university, okay? She is never leaving Innisgreen. She knows how to live off the land. There is no reason for her to get an education, or so she thinks. But her husband, he was going to Brightchester, and he was actually in the biology major to become a doctor because he's always kind of had that interest in helping other Sims. But while he was attending university, him and some friends, they really wanted to get to know nature a little bit more, to really understand different types of medicine and why different ingredients are used in different medicines. And so they all decided to take a trip over to this kind of unknown neighborhood called Innisgreen. Now, they have always heard pretty mysterious stories about Innisgreen, but it's always been kind of like a folk's tale, you know? And so they really wanted to go and explore Innisgreen. They did know that it was a neighborhood that was perfect for nature lovers, and a lot of different ingredients found in medicine can be found here in Innisgreen. And so that's kind of the reason why they were really wanting to go and travel to Innisgreen and kind of forage and live off of the land so that they could really understand different parts of nature. So him and his closest friends developed a plan, and they pretty much came to Innisgreen with only the clothes on their backs, and they decided to stay in the Spruce Dairy Grove part of Innisgreen, and that is where this house is now. But he is living with his family here in Spruce Dairy Grove. But this all happened years before he even met his now wife. So they ended up just staying here in Spruce Dairy Grove, where that big lake is, in that lot right there, and they pretty much made that their home plot, and they would venture off in different parts of Spruce Dairy Grove and Innisgreen in general. So him and his friends, they're living off the land, they're bathing in the lake that they are living by, they are hunting for their food, fishing, cooking it on a fire, and if any of them are getting sick, they are foraging for different ingredients and mastering the apothecary skill to figure out how exactly to make the medicine that they need. A few days go by, and they're getting a little bit bored with the everyday living. Like, they finally have it down pat exactly what they need to do to live off the land, and they're feeling pretty comfortable to venture out even more in Innisgreen. They are starting to hear from the locals that there's a hidden portion of Innisgreen called Everdew. And Everdew is familiar because he's always heard a folk's tale about Everdew and how fairies live there. Now, he is an unbeliever of all things supernatural. He is a skeptic, if you will. He does not believe any of these stories about fairies and all of that stuff in Everdew. He didn't even believe in Everdew, but now that he is hearing from locals here in Innisgreen, he is now starting to think that Everdew might actually be a place, but he is still not believing in fairies whatsoever. So him and his friends decide, you know what, let's just for a little bit of a laugh, let's go ahead and see if we can find Everdew. And if we do, let's explore it a little bit. And to be honest, none of them are even expecting to find anything. They think it's kind of maybe a joke that the locals tell these travelers just to get them on a never-ending Easter egg hunt. So a couple of days go by and there's no luck in their search, but then he sees this random girl who is not walking, which is weird. She is not walking by, but she is actually kind of floating by. And he's just mesmerized staring at her for a second. And she is honestly one of the most beautiful girls that he has ever seen. But he doesn't think she's just any normal girl. He sees her floating and he sees wings. And he's just like staring at her, just mesmerized. And she actually notices him and she asks him what his problem is. She's like, can I help you? Like, what are you looking at? And so she comes over closer to him and he's still just staring at her. And so she finally just flicks him in the forehead so that he snaps out of it. And he asks what she is. What are you? Like, what are you? And she says, well, excuse me, that's kind of rude. And so they have a little bit of a back and forth, and he finally comes to the realization that all of the stories he has ever heard in his life were true. And so he's just, in awe at the moment. His friends are nowhere around him. He went off on his own to try and search a little bit more for this Everdew. And so he finally realizes, you know what? It is what it is. She's a fairy. So he asks her where this Everdew place is. And she says, oh, well, I can take you there. Yes, it exists. Yes, I'm a fairy. Honestly, I'm a little bit amazed that you are a traveler and you made it this far. So with that being said, go ahead and get your friends and I will bring you guys to Everdew. So he went and he grabbed his friends and she did what she promised and she took them all to Everdew, and she actually took them to Star Song Lounge, which is the lounge in Everdew, and they had a night of fun there, and that was the most magical place they have ever been to in their life. They have never seen anything like it. There was like plants and lights and just fairies flying everywhere, and it was like a purple hue in the air, not only inside but outside as well. Like, it was completely magical, and these Sims were in absolute awe. They could not believe that they were not dreaming. Like, they thought they were in a dream, but all of the fairies, they are so just spunky that they just kept pinching them, saying, nope, you're not dreaming. Well, it is safe to say that after that magical night and meeting that wonderful fairy that he just fell head over heels in love with after that one night. He don't know what happened. He's never really been a super romantic Sim before in his life. Never really cared about finding love or anything like that. He was really just focusing on his career and his future. Well, that all flew out of the window once he laid his eyes on that magical fairy. It's not only the fact that she's a fairy, it's just her whole aura around her. He just fell in love with after one sight of her. And then spending all night with her, that didn't help. He just fell more and more in love with her. And so after that night, his friends, they were ready to go back home. They went back to Willow Creek and they continued their education. He could not bring himself to leave. He ended up staying in Innisgreen, and he dedicated his life to further research of the apothecary skill and to help these local Sims here in Innisgreen. So time goes on, he's researching and continuing to live off the land, and he's spending a lot of time with this fairy, and They are both head over heels in love with each other. She spent a little bit of time trying to decide if being with a mortal sim is really what she wanted, or if she wanted to find another fairy to have a family with. But she just could not spend time away from him, and so she realized that he is truly what she wants. So he ended up asking if she would marry him, and she says yes, of course. So they get married and have a magical wedding, and now fast forward to present day, they are now living in this house with their 2 children. They have 1 toddler and they have 1 infant. And she is actually pregnant with their 3rd child, and honestly, they don't have any more rooms in their house, so they had to put the bassinet in their bedroom. And once that newborn baby grows up into an infant, they are just going to have 2 of their kids share a room, and then one of them can get their own room. But that is all I have for their backstory. That was quite a long backstory, though. I did not mean to make it that long. It was really just going to be like a short little backstory, but I kind of went into detail there. So now that I have explained their backstory a little bit, I'm going to explain the design of the house. So obviously, just like the rest of my new pack builds, I am using only the new pack and base game, so Enchanted by Nature and base game only. And I'm really honestly using mostly Enchanted by Nature. All of the architecture is nothing but Enchanted by Nature on this build. And I really honestly, I had quite a hard time trying to design this build, especially in the beginning when I was doing the exterior shape. I built several houses and I bulldozed them several times until finally I designed the outside of this house, and I'm like, okay, well, you know what? It's good enough. I don't think it's gonna get any better than it already is. I really wanted to use like the white or the green swatch of this door and window combination, specifically because it had like butterfly wings shaped in the windows, and so I thought that was so cute that I wanted to use it so bad, but honestly, it doesn't look right. It does not look good all together for some reason on the outside of a house. I even have a second build with Enchanted by Nature ready to go and ready to post for Friday, and I once again tried to use that window and door combination with the white or the green swatch, or even the blue swatch with the butterfly design in the window, like the glass of the window. I could not make it work then either. There's something about it, just like it looks too busy or something, like it looks off. I have not been able to use it yet, and it's killing me. In the end, I ended up just going with this swatch color instead for the doors and the windows, and it seems like there's 2 different types of style in regards to the doors, windows, archways, all of that sort of stuff. This style that I'm using seems like it's more for like actual like buildings, and the other style seems like it's more for, I guess, fairies, but it almost seems like the other style took things out of the nature environment, like grass, mud, flowers, mushrooms, and they used that to create their house. So it's more of like a man-made or fairy-made, if you will, house. And it's a little bit hard to explain. I'm really not explaining it how I feel like I should be explaining it, but moral of the story, I feel like there's one that's more like, you know, a human built it with just like wood and, you know, basically just wood. And then the other style uses everything else in nature, like mud and grass and that sort of stuff. And I feel like that's a lot more fairy style than the one that I'm using here. I feel like this is more for like nature loving sims and not necessarily a fairy, so to speak. But that makes sense because there is also a human sim that lives here, and then there's also a fairy that lives here. So they kind of made a compromise and they decided to have a house that's made of like wood, you know, it's still made from nature, but you don't have all of the mud and the mushroom like wall surfaces and stuff like that. It's literally just like normal household things, but with wood. Other than that little like closet that I'm using, like the clothing rack that I'm using, I think that is so cute. It definitely looks more like the other style, not just wood, but it has like flowers and like grass growing on it, but it was too cute not to use, especially with the fairy clothes hanging on it, or what I like to call the fairy clothes, because it looks like the clothes that the fairies would wear. And then I do have plenty of the house plants all over the place, and some of the windows I actually put some of the vines, like the curtain vines, I put those on the windows. And then I did use the canopy above the infant's crib. I thought the canopy is so stinking cute. I was so happy when I seen that they put it in there. And I think it's specifically supposed to be for like beds and bedrooms in general, like above the crib, above the toddler bed, or above like a regular kid's bed. I think that's what it's supposed to be designed for. And then of course I used the big bed for the parents that came with the pack. That bed is beautiful. I love that bed. I think it is so pretty with the flowers on there and with like the cloth just draped over the top of the canopy bed. I think it is so cute. So we are back in the kitchen and I am finishing up all of the last minute decorations for the kitchen. So you probably noticed I'm jumping around quite a bit in this build, and that is because I had such a hard time figuring out my style with this kind of pack. You know, like these type of like items, the fairy tale-esque items, I'm just not 100% good at. So this is a learning experience for me, but with that being said, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. It at least looks cute at the end of the day, and that's all that matters. So at first glance, I thought I liked this new kitchen cabinet set, but honestly, there's something about it that I don't love. I think what's really throwing me off is that the tops, like the countertops, don't blend together when you piece them together. Like you can tell where the separate parts end. So I don't love that. I don't know if it's meant to be that way or if that's just like a sort of bug that they forgot to fix. But I kind of can't stand it, and my eye is always drawn to that like line that is obviously there, you know, like how I have the islands, it's kind of like in a circle. You could see all 4 parts that I placed, where I placed it, you know, you could see where it ends and where it meets. And I hate that. I cannot stand it. I also don't love the swatches that it came with either. I have to say that this particular swatch I'm using here is probably my favorite of all the swatches. I do really think that light green is pretty, but I haven't been able to use it yet. Like something about the light green's a little bit hard for me to use. Like I want to use the light green in the windows and for the counters. Why can't I do it? It just looks so weird to me when I try to do it. I'm just gonna have to like just sit down and just try, you know, just do it. Don't give up until it's done, you know, is what I need to tell myself. But another thing about the kitchen, I did place the stove on the opposite side of the kitchen. I placed it right behind the staircase. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I was trying to be kind of like unique about that, and it looks like it's like a stone fire stove. You know, you use like, not stone fire, but like wood fire stove, I guess, because there's like pieces of wood right under it. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna be kind of cool and do something different. It looks like it needs to be far away from everything else, but now that I'm looking at it, it's literally squeezed right behind a wooden staircase, so that doesn't really sound like the smartest thing. But, you know, in The Sims, we don't really have to worry about the staircase catching on fire, so it's fine. But I really had no other place to put the stove, and that's kind of what I came up with. And once I placed it there, I thought it made kind of not a lot of sense, but I thought it made a little bit of sense. Enough sense to where I left it that way, you know? And actually it was really fun being able to use that stove because I don't use it like rarely at all. It comes with the base game. Same with the fridge. That's like a stove fridge combination, like they go together. It's like cast iron. It looks super like old timey and stuff like that. It looks like it's perfect for a build like this. And so it was super fun to be able to take advantage of that and actually use it for once. And as I was building this, when I got to the kitchen and I was trying to figure out like the stove and the fridge that I wanted to use, I realized there was no stove and fridge in the new pack. So I was freaking out a little bit because I forgot about that like cast iron stove and fridge combo. So I was like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? Put a white fridge in here? That doesn't make any sense. And then I came across that and it's like the day was saved. And I also put a microwave in the kitchen, but that is pretty much it. I didn't load the kitchen up with a bunch of clutter pieces or a bunch of different like appliances. I wanted to keep it quite simple. I feel like this family, a lot of the time, if they're not cooking inside, they're probably cooking outside more than not. Like they love to grill different steaks and like different veggies, because I don't know why, but a fairy just gives me vegetarian vibes. I don't know why I feel that way, but I feel like a fairy would be a vegetarian. And so she's like, no, I don't want ribs, but I would kill for some grilled fruit right now, which honestly sounds disgusting to me. Grilled fruit don't sound good to me. Just give me fruit cold out of the fridge, like pineapples, apples, whatever it is, strawberries. I want it cold. I do not want my fruit grilled. That is just crazy. And then I did work on the dining room super quick. The dining room's super simple. You know, it has like a table and chairs and some decorations next to it. And that's really about it. I did place a couple of these like live house plants on the table and next to the table. Honestly, they're everywhere in the house. They're even in the infant's room. So just to let you guys know, I am not 100% sure, like gameplay wise, what those house plants do. So I didn't want to place them, you know, using a shelf and free place them onto something. I'm afraid that they would not be, your sim wouldn't be able to get to it and water it or talk to it or whatever it needs to do. I did look around a little bit, like I did start playing a little bit last night, just so I can get a better feel of fairies and what they need really in their house. And I didn't get very far. I got tired. But I did play a little bit, and I did click on some of the house plants, and it looks like you don't even water them. It looks like you talk to them. What kind of madness is that? Hopefully I just didn't see the option, or there's something else once they like need water, that's when you can water it. But I swear to you guys, if they made these living houseplants and you don't actually water them or spray them for bugs or fertilize them or anything like that, I'm gonna go crazy. I am going to go absolutely crazy. How is it a live houseplant if all you have to do is talk to it? You could talk to a plastic one too. It doesn't have to be alive. You know, the whole point of having a live houseplant is to take care of it, like water it, fertilize it, spray it for bugs, all of that stuff. So what kind of madness is that to where you don't actually have to take care of it, you just talk to it? That is going to make me super mad if that's really how it is. I need to play a little bit more before I fully judge, but at first glance, I'm not happy about it. And normally I wouldn't care. Like if that was just like an extra feature of the pack, I would not care. But I feel like they're selling that as like a major point of the pack. I don't know, maybe not, but I feel like they are. But something I am happy about is how cute this nursery came out. I think it is so stinking cute. Like this wallpaper, honestly, I've seen other people use it in like the whole build. It's a little bit too busy for me for that, but it's like adorable for a nursery. Oh my gosh, it's like perfect for a nursery. It gives fairy tale nursery vibes, and I think it is so stinking cute. This one right here where the toddler stays, it's not my best work, okay? And they have the same wallpaper, it is what it is. But the infant's room, I absolutely love the way that the infant's room came out. Like the leaves for the rugs is so stinking cute. And then the little canopy over the crib, and that toy box is shaped like a little acorn, and I don't know why, but that is like the cutest stinking thing I've ever seen in my life. Well, I say that about a lot of things. It's one of the cutest things I've seen in my life. And like I said, I don't love the way that this toddler's room came out, but it's not bad at the end of the day. It's still like a fairy tale vibe to it just because of the wallpaper. And then that bookcase, I absolutely love those bookcases. And they have like two different kinds, whichever way you want it to face. But I love the fact that they have like a tree with like literally the leaves and everything. The only downside to this bookcase is that it is very big and very bulky. And so you really need a lot of space to be able to use it. This is sized down and it's still pretty big and bulky, but it is super cute. I really love that bookcase. And the dollhouse is pretty cute too. I feel like we have the same thing with the dollhouse though. Like it reminds me of one of the other dollhouses that we have. So it's really not that much different, to be honest. We could have definitely used a different item other than that dollhouse, I think. I mean, I get why they added the dollhouse. I'm pretty sure they added the dollhouse because the fairies can actually shrink and like sleep in it and that sort of thing, but they could have done that with the base game dollhouse. They didn't really need to put a brand new dollhouse in the game to be able to figure that out, but whatever. At that point, they probably were running out of ideas for items, so they just had to come up with something, and they gave us another dollhouse. But we are over into the father's apothecary room. This is where he grows all of his like medicinal plants, and that table is where he does all of his research and where he creates all of the different medicines. I absolutely love the new update that they came out with where you can actually create glass walls now. That is going to make greenhouses so much easier to create. And you can also paint like the sides of the roof, like not the roof itself, we already have glass roofs, but like, you know, the side of the roof, if you have like a gabled roof and part of the roof has actual like wallpaper on the side of it, you can actually paint that side glass as well. And that is one thing I hated about the greenhouses that I would make, is that no matter what you did, that gabled part could not be glass unless you fit it perfectly with like windows, but there is no window in the game that I ever could find to fit it perfectly. So I kind of had to just ignore that part of it or use the greenhouse kit, and they have like a little piece you could put there on the gabled part. Well, now I don't have to stress about it anymore. I can actually use the glass wallpaper, if you will, you know, I can make it glass now. So that is awesome to me, and I love that update. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes the base game updates, honestly, are a major game changer, like more of a game changer than the expansion pack itself. That might be an unpopular opinion, but honestly, it's true. Like the same thing happened with pawns and the same thing happened with platforms. The base game updates is something that I actually use all the time, and it's a legit game changer. Like expansion packs were meant to be that way, but a lot of the newer expansion packs, I don't know, they're kind of tied down to the one world that comes with that expansion pack. Not really necessarily fairies, I guess you can have that anywhere, but for an example, Snowy Escape is like that. Like you can't use the snowboarding skill or the rock climbing skill anywhere besides Mount Komorebi. And that was the one bad thing I hated about Snowy Escape, because I love that pack. But the fact that you have to be in Mount Komorebi to use any of the pack like skills, that is not good to me. Like that just kills the whole mood, in my opinion, or the whole feeling you have about the expansion pack. But I guess technically this pack, you could use a lot of the different items in different neighborhoods. I mean, you could be a fairy anywhere, literally anywhere. And then same with the apothecary skill, you can forage anywhere. They probably have unique plants here in Innisgreen that you can't find anywhere else, but I'm not 100% sure. I haven't actually played yet, so it might be all the same plants. But that would be a whole nother issue, is if they didn't add any new like plants for like the medicines that you can make and the cures and all of that stuff. I feel like they probably did add some unique plants just for Innisgreen. They usually do, you know. But we are, as you probably could tell We are all finished with the interior of this build, and I am just working on the exterior now. At the moment, they don't have any children to use the swings or the little monkey bar set that I have here, but the toddler will age up to a child relatively quickly, so sooner than later they will have a little child running around and playing on both of these pieces of playground equipment. And we also have some garden beds out here. This is where mom and dad does their outdoor gardening, where like they do their fruits and veggies and maybe some flowers, but none of the medicinal stuff. All of the medicinal stuff that the dad uses for his apothecary is in the little like sunroom / green room there. But I definitely wanted to make sure I added some outdoor planter boxes as well, just so that they have a variety of the plants that they are growing, whether it's medicinal or just what they use for cooking. I also came across this like canopy where it has a lot of like vines growing on top of it, and it looks like it's made from like tree trunks, and I'm not really sure what they made it from, to be honest, but I thought it was so pretty. Every time we have a new canopy coming with a new pack, I always have to use it. I just love a good canopy, and the way that this one's decorated with like the different vines and flowers and stuff hanging from it, I think it is so pretty. They matched it perfectly with the fence and gate that came with the new pack too, so that's always fun when they actually make sure they match all of their items, because we know in the past they did not do that very well. So I think they learned their lesson. I think we complained enough about that. Which, on the subject of the new fence and gate that they added, I do like it. Don't get me wrong. I think it is very pretty, especially the gate. Like, I love the gate. But the fence, it's definitely a lot going on. Let's just put it that way. It's a little bit hard to use unless you create like a fairy tale sort of build like this one here. I feel like that sort of fence is not going to go very well with any other sort of build. Literally only a fairy tale type of build, maybe a little tiny like flower garden, but it would be kind of hard. Like, you would have to actually try and make it work. It wouldn't just be like you place it and you call it a day. Like, I don't know, at least for me, I feel like it would be hard for me to use anywhere else, but you guys might have a different opinion. I do think it would work really well in Glimmerbrook. Honestly, this pack with Realm of Magic items, I think would blend pretty well together. A lot of the items in this pack, I feel like it's giving a little bit of a witchy vibe, especially that gate right there. And like I was saying, I love the gate. I love the way that the gate is shaped and designed and how it has like vines growing on it. So yeah, I kind of want to make like a witch's house and use that gate now, because I feel like it would match perfectly. One thing that I am going to do here shortly, because the rest of this video really is just going to be terrain paint and then I add some lighting at the end, but one thing I do add is what I'm actually beginning it now. I put a little bit of like dirt underneath each of these pillars on the fence, and I think that added a lot to it. Like, I think it made it look a lot more blended in. Like, it just looked a little bit off, just placed on top of the grass with no like dirt or anything. So once I placed the dirt, I feel like it came together after that. I also don't love the color of the grass in this neighborhood either. I'm just gonna throw that out there. There's something about it. It's a little bit too like light, especially where the house is going to be. Like, the rest of the grass in the neighborhood is like a bright neon like green sort of thing. It's pretty, but then where the lot is, they make it like a super pale green, and I kind of hate it. But we have reached the end of our build, which means I cannot complain any longer, and you guys don't have to listen to me complain anymore. All jokes aside, I think this was a pretty good pack, but I'm questioning if it was expansion pack worthy or not. Let me know your thoughts down below. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Of course, if you did, don't forget to leave a like. It helps the algorithm push this video out to other simmers, and also subscribe if you have not already. I hope you guys have an amazing day or night, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye guys!